The night was quiet. The small human settlement on the alien planet of Alara was asleep. A cold wind moved through the metal houses. Inside one of them, John Keller sat at his desk. Looking at the small oil lamp on the table, he had finished his work hours ago, and he was ready for bed. He was alone. It had been 3 years since he left the war. 3 years since he came to this far planet to farm and forget. The sound of the wind was the only noise outside. No footsteps, no voices. It was always like this. And John liked it that way. He took off his boots and lay on his bed. His mind began to drift into sleep. And then he heard it knock. A slow, deep knock at his front door. Not fast, not urgent, but heavy, as if the hand that made it was larger than a human's. John sat up. His heart gave a small jump. Nobody visited at this hour. The settlement followed strict rules. No one walked around after dark. It was not safe. There were creatures out there. And not all of them were friendly. The knock came again, louder this time. Knock. Knock. John put on his boots and walked to the door. He stopped and listened. The wind had gone still. It felt like the whole world outside was holding its breath. He unlocked the door and opened it slowly. The cold air hit his face, standing. There was a tall figure in a long, dark cloak. The hood was up, hiding most of the face, but 2 silver eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. For a moment, neither of them spoke. John's hand stayed on the doorframe. The figure took a small step forward. A soft, almost musical voice spoke. "I will warm your bed, human. My children need a father." John's breath caught in his throat. The words were clear, but they made no sense. He stared at her. The cloak moved slightly, and he could see her skin, pale with a soft shimmer. Not human. Definitely not human. He had met aliens before. Valara was full of different species. But this one? This one was different. There was a strange beauty in her face. Sharp cheekbones, eyes like liquid silver. Her gaze was calm, but full of something else. A quiet desperation. John stepped back, unsure. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman lowered her hood. Her hair was dark, long, and braided with thin silver threads. "My name is Lorona," she said. "My husband is dead. My children have no protector." John shook his head. "I'm sorry for your loss, but I don't know you." Liruna's eyes stayed locked on his. "Your kind took my husband's life in the war," she said softly. "I am not here for revenge. I am here because my people have laws. When a warrior falls, the victor must care for his family. You are human. You will take his place." John's stomach tightened. "That's not how it works for us," he replied. "I'm not. I can't." Lirona took one slow step inside. Her cloak brushed against the floor, and then she pulled it open. John tensed, expecting weapons, but instead, he saw 3 small figures hiding under the folds of her cloak. Children, they were pale like her, with large silver eyes that watched him silently. One of them clung to her leg. The smallest peeked from behind her and then hid again. "They need a father," Lorona said. "Without one, they will not survive the winter. My enemies already. Look for them." John glanced past her into the night. The sky was clear. The moon's casting pale light over the dirt road. Nothing moved. But the air felt wrong, heavy, as if the shadows themselves were watching. He shook his head slowly. "Lady, I'm just a farmer now. I can't be." Laruna's voice cut through his words. "If you refuse, others will come. They will not ask. They will take." Her tone was calm, but there was steel underneath. John felt a small chill in his chest. Not from the wind, from the weight of her words. And then he saw it, movement, far away near the tree line. Something large was shifting between the shadows. For a second, he thought it was his imagination. But then, a faint metallic sound echoed through the air. A sound like claws scratching against steel. Lirona turned her head slightly, her eyes narrowing. "They have found us," she whispered. John's instincts from the war woke inside him. "Who?" he asked. "Rival clan," she said. "They want my children." For war. Before John could react, the metallic sound grew louder. Then, somewhere in the darkness, a low, heavy thud echoed. It sounded like a ship landing. John's hand twitched. Toward the closet where his old rifle rested, Liruna's silver eyes met his. "Choose now, human," she said quietly. "If you open the door to them, none of us will live to see the morning." Outside, the shadows moved closer. A tall, armored figure stepped into the moonlight. The silver reflection on its helmet flashed like a blade. It began walking toward the house, slow but certain. John's heart pounded. The children pressed closer to their mother. Lirona took a small step forward, standing between him and the door. The air was thick with the smell of metal and cold dust. And then a deep, heavy knock shook the door again. Knock, knock. The pounding on the door stopped. Silence filled the small room. John could hear his own heartbeat. The air was cold, and his breath came out in small clouds. Lirona stood completely still. Her silver eyes stayed on the door. The three children clung to her cloak, even without looking at them. John could feel their fear. Finally, the sound of heavy footsteps faded into the night. Whoever had been outside was gone. For now, Lirona slowly turned her head to look at John. "They will return," she said softly. "They never stop until they get what they want." John closed the door and locked it. He leaned against the wall. "You need to start explaining," he said. "Why me? Why here? Why tonight?" Lirona stepped forward. Her cloak moved like liquid shadow around her. "I told you. My husband is dead," she began. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were like sharp glass. "He was a warrior of the Valrus. We fought in the war against the humans. Your kind took many lives. He was one of them." John's chest tightened. He had been a soldier during the Valara campaign. He didn't remember every face. The battles had been fast, loud, and bloody. It was possible he might have even fought in the same battle where her husband fell. "I'm sorry for your loss," John said slowly. "But I still don't understand why you came to me." Liruna's gaze did not soften. "In my culture, when a warrior dies, the one who stands in his place must protect his bloodline. It is the way of the Valrus." Her voice became colder. "Human law does not matter to me. What matters is survival." John frowned. "That's not how things work for humans." He ran his hand through his hair. "Even if I wanted to help, I'm just a farmer now. I can't fight a war for you." Liruna's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Then you will learn again," she said. "You have fought before. I can see it in the way you stand, the way your eyes go to the rifle in the corner, the way your breath slows when danger comes." Her words made John's skin prickle. It was true. He had not lost those instincts, even after 3 years of peace. The soldier inside him still waited for the next battle. Lirona moved to the table and sat down. The children stayed close, their small faces half hidden. One of them, the oldest, stared at John without blinking. His silver eyes were sharp, almost to knowing for a child. "They killed him during the siege of Tovar Ridge," Lirona said, not quickly. "They took him prisoner. They wanted to break him, but he never gave them what they wanted. He died with honor." Her voice did not shake, but her hand curled tightly around the edge of the table. John listened in silence. He remembered Tovar Ridge, the chaos, the smoke, the endless rain of gunfire. He remembered the way prisoners had been exchanged. But he also remembered the bodies that never made it home. "My clan is small," Lirona continued. "Without a strong protector, we will be destroyed. The rival clans know my children are heirs. If they take them, they will be raised as soldiers. They will be taught to kill. The smallest child let out a quiet whimper. Lirana pulled him close, her cloak wrapping around him like wings. They are my life, she said softly. I will not let anyone turn them into weapons, John felt. A strange pressure in his chest. It wasn't pity exactly. It was something heavier. A soldier's understanding. He had seen children taken in wars before. He knew what happened to them. It was worse than death. You came here tonight because you think I'll protect you, John said. Laruna's eyes locked on his. No, she said. I came here because you will. John didn't like how certain. She sounded as if his choice had already been made. He stood and paced across the small room. This is insane, he muttered. Even if I wanted to help, I'd be putting myself in the middle of some alien feud. Lirona tilted her head slightly. It is already too late, she said. They saw me enter your home. Now, they will believe you are part of my clan. If you send me away, they will kill you too. John froze. Her words sank into his mind. Like cold water, she was right. Those shadows outside, the warriors in the dark, they had seen him. They would not let him stay out of this. The oldest child spoke for the first time. His voice was soft but clear. If you help us, we will keep you safe, he said. John stared at him. You think you can keep me safe? The boy didn't blink. I know we can. A faint rumble shook the ground under their feet. John's head snapped toward the window, far in the distance. Lights were moving through the trees, bright white searchbeams cutting through the night. Lirona stood, pulling the children close. They have returned, she said. Her silver eyes gleamed in the dim light. This time, they will not knock. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder, and then a deep, bone-shaking roar filled the air. The ground trembled again. John could feel it through the wooden floor. Something heavy was moving outside. Lirona kept the children close, her silver eyes scanning the windows. The faint light of the moon touched her pale skin. It made her look otherworldly, like she didn't belong in the same air. He breathed. John's fingers twitched toward his old rifle leaning in the corner. But he didn't move just yet. Lirona spoke without looking at him. If you come with us, you will live. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. If you stay here, you will die before morning. John frowned. You think I'll just walk away from my home? This farm is all I have. Lirona finally looked at him. You have nothing if you are dead, she said. She stepped forward. You will have food, safety, and power in my clan. You will have my respect. Her voice dropped lower. You will have my bed. John's jaw tightened. This isn't about that, he said. I'm not some prize you can just take. Liruna's eyes didn't waver. You think I am here because of desire? She let out a small, bitter laugh. I am here because my people's law demands it. But make no mistake, human. You are not useless to me. You are a fighter. I need one. John shook his head. I told you. I'm not a soldier anymore. Lirana's expression sharpened. You don't have the luxury of choosing. Not anymore. The floor shook again. Harder this time. A low, metallic hum filled the air outside. It was the sound of engines. Hunting, John stepped toward the door and peeked through the narrow window. Shapes moved in the darkness, tall figures in armor, their faces hidden behind masks. The armor glinted under the moonlight. Silver and black, weapons hung in there. Hands like extensions of their arms. How many? John asked quietly. 4, Lirona said without hesitation. Scouts. If they don't find us soon, more will come. John turned to her. You brought them here. They were coming anyway, she replied. Her tone was flat, like she was stating the weather. The oldest child stepped forward, his silver eyes met John's. If you fight with us, they will not win, he said. The smallest one clung to Lirana's leg, his wide eyes fixed on the door. John's stomach twisted. He didn't want this. He didn't want to be part of anyone's war again, but the reality was clear. Even if he told them to leave, these warriors wouldn't just walk away. A sharp thud hit the side of the house. Then another, metal on metal. John grabbed his rifle. The weight of it felt too familiar in his hands. He had cleaned it every month. Even though he swore he'd never use it again, Lirina's gaze dropped to the weapon. "So you remember," she said. Almost to herself, John checked the magazine. "I remember enough," he replied. Lirona pulled a strange weapon from beneath. Her cloak, it looked like a blade, but it glowed faintly along the edges. The light pulsed, like it was alive. John had never seen anything like it. "This is the last chance I will offer," she said. "Fight with me now, and you will have the protection of my clan. Refuse, and you will be dead before the next moonrise." John's eyes narrowed. "You make it sound like I don't have a choice." "You don't," she replied. "Outside." Shadows moved closer. The sound of armored boots crushing the dirt grew louder. John thought of running, but where? The forest was full of night creatures. The rival clan would chase him for days. And the truth was, he hated the idea of those kids being taken. A heavy slam hit the front door. The wood groaned under the impact. Lirona didn't flinch. "They won't stop," she said quietly. "They'll break through soon." John looked at the children. Again, the youngest hid his face in his sister's cloak. The oldest didn't look afraid. His eyes burned with quiet defiance. John felt something shift in his chest. It was the same feeling he used to get before a battle. The calm before the storm. He took a deep breath. "All right," he said, "I'll fight. But when this is over, you're telling me everything." Lirina's lips curved slightly. "You have my word." The pounding on the door grew violent. John moved to the side, rifle ready. Lirona stood on the other side, blade in hand. The children moved back toward the far wall. The air inside the small home felt electric. Every sound from outside seemed sharper, closer. A loud crack split the air, the doorframe beginning to splinter. Through the gap, John saw a dark shape, armor gleaming under the moon, a masked face turning slowly. "Searching, they're coming in," John said. "They are already here." Lirona replied, her voice steady. The door shattered inward with a deafening crash. The first armored figure stepped inside, its weapon raised. John squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared, and the fight began. The first intruder fell backward. The rifle shot hit him square in the chest. The impact threw the armored figure into the night air outside. A sharp metallic clang echoed as he hit the ground. There was no time to breathe. Two more figures stepped into the doorway. Their eyes glowed faint red behind black masks. One carried a long spear tipped with something that shimmered like liquid. The other raised a weapon that hummed with a low, dangerous sound. John fired again. The second figure staggered, armor dented but not broken. These weren't like any enemy he had fought before. They moved differently, faster, like wolves circling a wounded animal. Lirona moved before the spear could strike. Her glowing blade cut through the air with a sound like burning metal. Sparks of blue light scattered as she struck. The spear shattered. The alien holding it screamed, clutching his arm as blood, dark and thick, spilled onto the floor. The third warrior lunged at John. He ducked, slamming the butt of his rifle into the attacker's helmet. The force knocked the warrior sideways into the wall. Wood splintered, dust falling from the ceiling in the corner. The children huddled close together. The smallest whimpered. The oldest watched without blinking, his silver eyes locked on the fight. Outside, another shadow moved closer. A fourth warrior, taller, heavier than the others, stepped into view. He didn't rush in like the rest. Instead, he stood just outside the doorway, watching, measuring, the faint light of the moons reflected off the strange symbols carved into his armor. Lirona noticed him too. Her voice dropped, sharp and urgent. "That one is their leader." The leader raised his weapon, a long, jagged blade that seemed to hum in the air. He spoke in a deep, growling language John couldn't understand. The sound felt like it was meant to crawl into his bones. Lirona answered in the same language, her tone low and cold. John didn't know the words, but he understood the meaning. The leader wanted them to surrender. Lirona refused. Without warning, the leader stepped forward. The fight became chaos. John fired again and again. The rifle kicked hard against his shoulder. Lirona's blade flashed like lightning in the dark, the air filled with the metallic smell of alien blood. One of the attackers grabbed John's arm. The grip was like iron. John twisted, slamming his elbow into the warrior's chest. Pain shot up his arm, but the alien let go. John swung his rifle up, firing at point-blank range. The shot threw the warrior back into the night. The leader's blade met Lirona's glowing sword. The clash sent a shockwave through the room. The wooden walls shook. The lamp on the table fell and shattered. The firelight flickered, shadows dancing wildly. The leader pushed forward. Lirona slid back a step, her boots scraping the floor. Her voice was calm but strained. "John, keep them away from the children." John turned. One of the wounded warriors was crawling toward the kids. The oldest child didn't move. He stood in front of his siblings like a tiny, fearless sentinel. John stepped between them and fired. The alien dropped instantly, its weapon clattering to the floor. Outside, more distant shapes moved in the darkness. John's gut twisted. "They're bringing more," he called. Lirona's blade locked with the leader's again. "They will not stop," she said through clenched teeth. The leader's eyes glowed brighter. He shoved Lirona back, almost slamming her into the wall. She caught herself and lunged forward, her blade cutting across his armor. Sparks flew, but the cut wasn't deep enough. John fired at the leader. The bullet hit the side of his helmet. The leader staggered, then turned his glowing eyes toward John. The look was cold and deliberate. A silent promise Lirona took. The opening, her blade swept low, slicing across the leader's knee joint. The alien roared, dropping to one leg. His weapon swung wildly, cutting deep into the wall, wood-cracked dust raining from the ceiling. "Now?" Lirona shouted. John didn't think. He raised the rifle and fired into the leader's chest. The impact threw him back through the doorway. The armored figure hit the dirt outside with a heavy crash. Silence followed. Only the wind moved through the open doorway. The leader didn't get up. The other surviving warrior dragged him away into the shadows. Then they were gone. John lowered his rifle. His arms trembled from the tension and recoil. Lirona's breathing was fast, but steady. She looked at the doorway for a long moment. "They will be back," she said quietly. "They never lose twice without trying again." John glanced at the children. They were safe for now, but their eyes told him they knew the fight wasn't over. From far in the forest, a deep metallic howl rose into the night. It wasn't an animal. It was a call, a signal. John's stomach sank. "That's them calling for more," he said. Lirona nodded. "And they will come before dawn." The fire in the broken lamp guttered and went out. The room fell in two. Near darkness, only the cold moonlight lit their faces. Lirona looked at John. "We cannot stay here," she said. "If we do, none of us will see the morning." John tightened his grip on the rifle. He knew she was right. But leaving meant stepping into the same darkness where those things waited. And then, in the stillness, a low rumble came from beneath the floor. Lirona's eyes flicked toward it. "There is a way out," she said, "but you must trust me." The floor still rumbled under their feet. It was not the enemy now. It was something beneath the house, A faint grinding, a hidden mechanism slowly coming to life. Lerona knelt and pulled back an old, worn rug. Beneath it was a metal hatch. Dust and dirt clung to its edges. "This leads to the old smuggler's tunnels," she said. "They run under the hills." Far from the settlement, John looked at it. "Why didn't you mention this earlier?" Her silver eyes locked on his. "Because if we leave too soon, they will follow us directly. We needed to make them bleed first, before John could respond." The sound of engines outside grew louder again. Shadows passed across the windows. This time, the enemy didn't knock. They were coming fast. Lerona looked at him. "We go now." John shook his head. "They'll see us run. If they spot the hatch, we're trapped underground." He walked to the closet, pulled out a small metal box. Inside were his last grenades from the war. 2 of them, dusty, old, but still deadly. He glanced at Lerona. "If we're going?" "We're giving them a reason to stay busy." The children huddled together as the footsteps outside drew closer. The pounding of armored boots echoed against the ground, through the thin walls. John could hear low voices in that same growling. Alien tongue. It wasn't just a patrol this time, it was an assault team. The first window shattered inward. A steel hook smashed through the glass. It dug deep into the wall, anchoring something heavy. Seconds later, another hook landed on the other side. They were pulling the walls apart. John's voice was low but firm. "When I say run, take the kids and go down that hatch." "Don't stop for anything," Lerona gave a sharp nod. "You better be behind us." The front door burst open without warning. 3 armored warriors stormed inside. John didn't hesitate. He hurled the first grenade toward the doorway. The explosion tore through the air. Shrapnel ripped into the invaders. Throwing them back outside, the blast shook the entire house. The children covered their ears. The smell of burning metal filled the air. But there was no time to celebrate. 2 more enemies came through the side window. John raised his rifle, firing in short bursts. One dropped instantly. The other lunged forward with a curved blade. John blocked with the rifle, the steel screeching as it met the weapon's edge. The alien strength was overwhelming. John's boots slid across the floor as he fought to keep the blade away from his chest. Lerona appeared at his side. Her glowing sword sliced upward. The attacker's weapon split in 2. A second strike cut deep into his armor. The warrior collapsed in a heap outside. More shadows moved in the moonlight. Dozens now. The leader was gone, but his forces had doubled. The air carried the sound of metal boots and the hiss of energy weapons charging. Lerona's voice was sharp. "Now?" John grabbed the second grenade. He pulled the pin and threw it toward the largest group outside. The explosion lit the night in a blinding flash. Screams and the crackle of burning armor followed. Smoke rolled in through the broken windows. John coughed, waving it away. The heat from the blast washed over him, but it gave them the moment they needed. Lerona dropped through the hatch first. She caught the children one by one as they slid down. John stayed at the top, rifle ready, through the smoke. He saw 2 more armored figures charging forward. He fired until the magazine was empty. Then he grabbed the hatch and dropped into the dark. The tunnel was narrow, cold, and smelled of damp earth. The walls were rough, the ceiling low enough that John had to hunch above them. The muffled sounds of boots and shouting filled the air. The enemy was already inside the house, searching. Lerona didn't stop moving. Her cloak swept the dirt as she led them deeper. Her blade glowed faintly, casting strange shadows on the tunnel walls. The children followed close behind her. There. Small hands brushed against the stone as they walked. John glanced back. A faint shaft of light still came from the open hatch, but then a shadow moved across it. An armored head peered down into the tunnel. The enemy had found the entrance. John raised his rifle. One shot echoed in the confined space. The figure above fell back, but the sound of more boots came immediately. "They're coming in after us," he said. Lorona didn't slow. Then we moved faster. The tunnel twisted left and right, sometimes dropping sharply before leveling again. The air grew colder. John could hear the faint drip of water somewhere ahead. Behind them, the sound of pursuit was getting closer. The clang of armor against stone. The heavy breathing of warriors who were not stopping. John felt his muscles tighten. This was going to be close. Then a sudden flash of light erupted ahead. John instinctively aimed his rifle, but Lorona lifted a hand. "It's not them," she said. "The exit is near." They reached a small underground chamber. A wide crack in the ceiling let in silver moonlight. A crude ladder of metal rungs was bolted into the wall. Lorona motioned to the children. "Climb. Quickly." The youngest went first, followed by the middle child. John helped the oldest onto the ladder. Then he turned back toward the tunnel entrance. Shadows were already stretching. Toward them, the enemy was almost here. John's heart pounded. He raised his rifle one last time. "This ends here," he muttered. The fight in the dark was about to begin again. The oldest child reached the top of the ladder. Moonlight spilled over his pale face as he climbed out. Lorona was already helping the younger two onto the surface. Her movements were quick but steady. There was no fear in her hands, only urgency. John stayed at the bottom of the ladder. The shadows in the tunnel behind him stretched longer. The sound of armored boots was now a steady, pounding rhythm. They were close. Closer than he wanted. A faint hiss filled the air. An energy weapon charged in the darkness. John fired a short burst into the tunnel mouth. The muzzle flash lit the cramped space. One figure fell. Two more stepped over the body without slowing. "John." Lorona's voice was sharp from above. "Now." He climbed the ladder 2 rungs at a time. His boots scraped against the cold metal. He could feel the vibrations of the enemy's approach beneath him by the time his head broke through the opening. The night air hit him like a cold wave. They were in a narrow ravine. High rock walls rose on either side. The ground was uneven. The sky above was split between 2 moons, one pale, one blood red. The silver light of the larger moon made Lorona's cloak shimmer faintly. "Move," she said, pulling him clear of the opening. The moment his feet hit the ground, Lorona reached down and yanked a metal lever near the hatch. A hidden mechanism groaned. A slab of stone slid over the entrance. From above, it looked like nothing but bare rock. "They'll still track us," John said. "They'll smell the trail, hear our movement." "They will," Lorona cut in. "That's why we don't give them time." She turned and started down the ravine. Her pace was fast but controlled. The children followed in a tight line. John brought up the rear, scanning the shadows for movement in the distance. Faint beams of light swept across the sky. Search drones thin, insect-like machines floated high above the trees. Their sharp beams cut through the darkness every few seconds. One of them tilted lower. John knew that if one spotted them, the enemy would descend in minutes. They moved for nearly 10 minutes without a word. The only sound was the crunch of boots on loose stones. Then, ahead, the ravine widened into a small clearing. A single structure stood there, a half-buried building of alien design. It's curved. Metal walls glowed faintly. Vines crept over its surface like claws frozen mid-swipe. "This is the safe place?" John asked. "No," Lorona said. "This is where we prepare to run farther." She stepped to the side of the building and pressed her hand to a small panel. A hiss escaped as a narrow door slid open. The inside was dim. John caught a glimpse of strange metal crates, weapons lined along the walls. In the corner, something that looked very much like a small spacecraft. The children moved inside quickly. John stayed at the doorway, looking back toward the way they had come. The ravine behind them was empty, but too quiet. No wind, no insect calls, just stillness. "They're not far," he said. Lerona nodded. "Then we work fast." She moved to one of the crates and pulled out a compact black device. She handed it to John. "Tracker jammer." She said, "They can follow our scent, but this will block their location scans for an hour." John strapped it to his belt. "What happens after an hour?" "They find us," she said, without hesitation. "That is why we will not be here by then." She opened another crate. Inside were packets of dried food, small vials of glowing blue liquid, and a map printed on a thin sheet of flexible metal. She spread the map across a crate lid. It showed the surrounding region, the settlement, the ravines, the dense forest beyond, and deep in the forest. A mark in red, shaped like a circle with 3 lines cutting through it. "That is where we go," Lerona said. "It is an old refuge of my people." Hidden from both clans, John studied the distance. "That's at least 20 kilometers. With the tunnels behind us gone, it's the only choice," she replied. "If we stay in the open, we're dead. If we move through the forest, we might live." He didn't like might, but there was no better plan. A faint noise made him turn somewhere beyond the ravine walls. A metallic scraping sound echoed like claws dragging across stone. "They've reached the tunnel," John said. "They'll be on the surface in minutes." Lerona looked at the children. Her voice was firm. "We go now." She grabbed a bundle from the wall, a folded cloak of strange, dull fabric. She threw one to John. "It will hide your body heat from the drones." The fabric was surprisingly light. It felt almost alive under his fingers. They left the building and moved quickly into the forest path. The trees were tall and twisted, their branches tangled like skeletal hands. The moonlight barely touched the ground here. Every step felt like moving deeper into something's mouth. Behind them, faint red lights began to glow in the distance. John's gut clenched. "They're close," he whispered. Lerona didn't slow. "They're always close," she said. "That is why you keep moving until you can't." Somewhere far ahead, an owl-like cry echoed, except John knew it wasn't an owl. It was a signal. A sound that told him the hunt had truly begun. The forest felt alive. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound echoed too loudly in John's ears. Lerona led the way, her glowing eyes scanning between the twisted trees. The children stayed close to her, their silver gaze never leaving the path ahead. John walked at the rear, his rifle ready. The strange cloak muffled the sound of his steps, but it couldn't quiet the pounding in his chest. Far behind them, faint red lights pulsed through the trees. The enemy was still on their trail. Every few minutes, John could hear the low hiss of their comms. Alien voices trading short bursts of words he didn't understand, but he didn't need to know the language. He could hear the hunger in it. The ground began to slope upward, the path narrowing between jagged rocks. Moonlight spilled across the stones like silver water. John's boots crunched over loose gravel. Every sound felt like it could give them away. "How much farther?" he whispered. Lerona didn't turn. "Not far," she said. Her voice was steady, but John could see the tension in her shoulders. A sudden noise made him stop. A metallic chirp, sharp and quick. He looked up. A drone hovered between the branches, its thin frame barely visible, its red eye glowing like a coal. Before John could raise his rifle, Lerona's blade flashed upward. The drone split in two, its pieces falling silently into the moss. She glanced at him. "They know we're in the forest now." The air grew colder as they climbed. A thin mist clung to the ground. It swirled around their legs like pale smoke. Somewhere in the distance, a low, drawn-out howl echoed through the trees. It was answered by another, closer. The children didn't flinch. John wondered if they had heard these sounds all their lives, or if they were simply too used to danger to react. They reached the top of The slope, the forest opened into a wide clearing. In the center stood a jagged rock formation. It rose from the earth like the spine of some dead beast. Carved into its side was a narrow opening, almost invisible in the shadows. "This is it," Lirona said. Her voice was low. John studied the entrance. "It didn't look like much. Doesn't seem very secure," he said. Lirona's lips curved faintly. "It is not what it seems." She led them inside. The tunnel was tight at first. John had to duck to avoid scraping his head, but after several steps, it widened into a hidden chamber. The walls glowed faintly with veins of blue crystal. The air was warmer here, almost too warm in the center. Of the chamber sat a craft, small, sleek, and clearly alien. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal. It hummed softly, like it was alive. John stared. "You've had a ship this whole time." Lirona looked at him. "It was never about reaching the ship," she said. "It was about reaching it without leading them here." She moved to the craft and placed her hand on a panel. It opened with a hiss. The interior glowed faint gold. The seats looked molded for her people, but John saw there was room for him too. The children climbed in first. Lirona turned to John, her silver eyes fixed on his. "If you step inside, your old life ends here," she said. "There will be no going back to your farm, no quiet days, only what comes next." John's mind flashed through images the battles of the war, the years he spent alone. The blood on his hands tonight, the children's faces, the way the oldest had stood in front of his siblings like a soldier. He exhaled slowly. "Where would we go?" Lirona's voice was quiet but certain. "Far from here, 2 places humans have never seen. 2 enemies you have never imagined." John's fingers tightened on his rifle. The sound of pursuit was still faint in the distance, but it was growing. Louder. They didn't have long. He looked at the ship again. It was both terrifying and inviting. The warmth inside seemed to promise safety, or at least survival. Outside, a beam of red light swept across the clearing. Voices shouted in the alien tongue. The enemy was almost here. John made his choice. He stepped into the craft. The door sealed behind him with a sharp hiss. The noise outside vanished, replaced by the low, steady hum of the ship. Lirona took the pilot's seat. Her hands moved across controls John didn't understand. The ship vibrated, a deep pulse building under their feet. Outside, the enemy burst into the clearing. They raised their weapons, but the ship's hull shimmered. The blue crystals in the cave walls pulsed in response. A blinding light filled the chamber. When John's eyes cleared, they were already lifting off. The walls of the chamber sliding away beneath them. The forest became a blur. The moons hung above like silent witnesses. Lirona glanced at him. "You are one of us now," she said. Her voice was calm, certain. John didn't answer. He only looked out the window at the alien world rushing past. Beneath them, and he wondered, had he just saved his life? Or traded it for something far more dangerous?